Been going.
I mean, I'm just sitting here taking, it's funny about being friends with someone. I've never read your bio until like 10 minutes ago. And I'm so overwhelmed. Now I'm like, oh, I'm nervous. Hi, I've really been wanting to have you on What You're Craving
Hi.
forever. And in the
I'm
sweet
honored to be here.
manner of Loren Lahav, I just randomly asked you yesterday, and you're like, yeah, totally.
That's how we do it. That's how we jive. I like it like that. I like it
So
like that.
just get to business. How does one become, and this is true, how does one become the queen of personal development in such a short amount of time, by the way? You really are. I mean, that's really what's true. And I feel like I love you so much. And I feel like you're one of the most fearless people I know. How do you get that way? Can we all be? I want to be more like that. Can you teach us just a quick lesson right now?
Well, no, I think that actually is. I think it is time in the trenches. Honestly, I remember once having a call with Bob Proctor. I asked him to do a forward for a book I've been working on before he passed away, obviously. And I said, Bob, I owe you an apology. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, I used to like poo-poo the whole experience part of things and think like you just go and. And I said, but man, of 30 years of being in personal development, so many stories, so many people I've worked with. I mean, you were off to an appointment with one of your clients, and just
Right.
we have so much
Busy.
we have so much experience, right? We've heard so many stories. It's like, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm gonna knock on wood, but I feel like nothing can, there like if someone handed me a challenge that I could always deal with it.
I think,
Like I feel
listen,
like
I do think coaching and therapy, these are the kinds of professions that time really does things for some of us.
yeah.
If we're all doing our own work, I would agree with that. I think, how did you get into the field? Like, I don't
Oh
know.
my God.
I always feel like one of my teachers is always like, no one becomes spiritual for no good reason. Like only people do it through pain. Like, how did you even get, like, can you walk us through
No.
your career a
Yeah,
little bit in your
absolutely.
personal
So,
life?
so a little bit of my personal, I'm originally from Asheville, North Carolina, as you know, and a little Jewish girl from Asheville, North Carolina, where back then there were not many people that were there, and it was not easy growing up in the 60s back then in that way, because there were parts of Asheville that, no blacks, no Jews, no anybody could go to. And I remember saying to myself as a little girl that I want people to love me for who I am, not what I am. And my parents raised us with very, very strong contribution values. My dad was in the Lions Club for 52 years. We, delivered food to the homeless. We helped at a place called the Margie McCune Home for the Blind. I mean, whatever we could do of service. My dad was one of the people that started the housing authority
Oh, wow.
back then. So it was, all I knew was contribution my whole life. That's all I knew is that's what you're just supposed to do. It's just the right, I have a sign right before I leave my house every day, and it says, do the right thing every doggone day of your life. That's
Mm.
basically what it says. And and it's so funny because I've never seen I took a picture of it. All I've ever seen in my head is do the right thing every doggone day of your life. And the actual sign says, do the right thing almost every day of your life. And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting that somebody would put that's what would be written on there. Anyway, I was going to go to Chapel Hill. I was a journalism major. And then my friend was going to go check out the University of Georgia. She was going to be a cross country runner. And she goes, hey, will you go check this out with me? I'm like, sure. And I was already enrolled in Chapel Hill, decided to go to Georgia. And that just one moment, because I just loved it. And, as you know, it's more of a broadcast journalism school. And I was sharing with you a while ago that my goal was to be the next Barbara Walters. That was ever since I was in college. I wanted to be the next Barbara Walters. This was 1987. I graduated from high school and I was going to go work for CNN when it was first starting off. And I think they paid like
Atlanta, right?
$12,000 in Atlanta.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to move to Atlanta. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to do this whole thing. So I kind of like had decided that that's what I was going to do. And I remember going for an interview, and I think it was like $12,000 they were paying for a year. I'm like, I'm not even going to be able to pay my rent, with regards to this. And I'd been to a football game with my boyfriend at the time, and we're walking back from the football game, and he sees this book, and back then there were no like gluten-free cookbooks. There was no like whatever, like all these, there were just books. And he sees this book in the window of the gift store, and he says, unlimited power, that's so you. And so he grabs me and he puts me into the bookstore. And like I said, this was October 1987. And he flips the book over, and it's a picture of Tony Robbins on the back of the book. He's got the whole 3-piece suit. He's got suspenders. He's got the whole car park going on in his head. And he's on a firewalk lane. And my boyfriend says, one day we're going to go to a Tony Robbins seminar. And I'm like, you're a freak. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm moving to Atlanta and I'm going to work for CNN. So anyway, I did what any good college graduate would do. I graduated in December that year, like literally a couple months later. And I moved to Vail, Colorado to work on my doctorate of waitressing. So I know the story's a little long, but I think it's important for people to understand to follow.
I mean, given where you are today, I would like every nook and cranny of how you got there.
So I went to Vail, and I just understood. I love stories. I love hearing people's stories. I'm very curious. And I had quite a Southern draw. And I decided to kind of shift my career. The reason I actually didn't go work for CNN was I had a hard time pronouncing the names of some of the presidents of countries. And so I made up this crazy story like, oh, I just don't want to do this, instead of asking for help. Yeah. Instead of going, you know what, I need some help and having some confidence to be able to do that. So I convinced myself that I wasn't supposed to do that, right? And I'm like, I'm going to get into sports marketing. That's why I'm moving to Colorado. And my manager knew I wanted to get into sports marketing. So he would sit anybody that had to do with the world of sports at my table without me knowing, right? Mm-hmm. My first customer was Howard Head. I remember saying to him, how'd you come up with Head tennis wear? I mean, that oversized racket. And he's like, I couldn't see the ball anymore, right? Or I just would wait on all these cool people. And one day I was waiting on this table full of men. And this one man goes, well, do you know who that is over there? I'm like, sir, I don't know. I just treat everybody the same. And at this guy, everybody kept looking at him at this one table. And I said, I'm so sorry. Everybody keeps looking at you. They think you're Omar Sharif. And the guy's like, I am Omar Sharif.
Who's Omar Sharif, for those who don't know?
Oh my gosh, from Dr. Zhivago. If you haven't been, you have to watch Dr. Zhivago. Those are the kind of movies we need these days again, right?
Yeah.
And so this guy goes, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I go, I want to get into sports marketing. And they all start laughing, and I put on my sass. I go, listen. And I go, that's what I'm going to do. And here's what I'm going to do. And they go, young lady, they go, we are the world of sports. And it was Mark McCormick, Donald Dell, like everybody you can imagine. This guy was sitting at the head of the table, and he said, my name's Joe Harper, and I'm general manager of the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, and I want you to come work for me. And I look at him, and I'm like, where is Del Mar? And he goes, you're perfect. And I moved to California, didn't know a soul. My manager made sure I was taken care of, and I just said yes. I mean, as you know, that's what I do. I just say yes. And I moved to San Diego, and I became, the special events and group sales and winner's circle. And I loved it. I loved it. But, there's the thing that is Tony Robbins talks about, there's something that's called the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. And I loved it, but I didn't have the fulfillment. Something was missing for me.
And you were very high achieving, but you didn't feel it in your soul.
I didn't just feel
I think there's a lot of people that can relate to just that. I mean, right? Like,
yeah, I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. Like, and then I started to also, we always talk about when you're more aware, you make better decisions, right? And so I think that one of the biggest gifts is to really be aware and awake. And most people fall asleep at the wheel of life. And I didn't want to be one of those people falling asleep at the wheel of life. And I just would look around, and I'd see people literally just like given up, or they was like, this is it. And so my friend, his name is Tom Landers, he said, look, we're going to go deliver food to the homeless. This was November 1989. He said, do you want to go? I go, oh my God, that'd be amazing. So I end up at this big house in Del Mar. And this house, you know, there are about 25 people there, and we are putting together these baskets and we're given directions of where to drop them off. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is great. Like, this is what I was missing. So we come back from the houses and I'm walking around the turret. This house was like a castle. And I was walking around the turret of the castle, and I see this man in the president, this man in Nelson Mandela, this, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then I get to a giant shadow box and I see this book in it. And I was like, oh my God, that's that book that my boyfriend bought me in college, you know, and I'm 24 at the time. And this guy comes up behind me, kind of, you know, goofy kind of thing. And he goes, hey, have you read my book? And I'm like, no, but I have it. Right. And he goes, and he was only 29 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he said, look, he goes, I saw you had a really great time today. Why don't you stay for dinner?
And this is Tony Robbins, everybody.
This is Tony Robbins. He was 29 years old. And so I was like, all right, cool, thanks. And so I end up sitting at dinner and everybody's like, do you know where you are? And I'm like, I don't know. Some guy invited me over. Some guy we just delivered food to the homeless with, you know, just invited me over. He goes, oh, sorry, my dog's very excited.
Oh, welcome to my house.
This is Tony Robbins' company. This is Robbins Research International. I'm like, all right, whatever. And it was the start of his company. It was the very first basket brigade he had put together. And he had each person stand up and say what they were grateful for. And I felt my heart just kind of like drop. And I stood up. I was like, you know, I haven't asked myself that question in a really long time. I just got so caught up doing life. And I think, you know, this mandatory pause that just happened over these past 3 years got all of us, right, to go, what is it that I really want? Who do I really want to be around? How do I really want to show up in the world? And I was like, you know, I'm just grateful that I finally met a group of people like this. I didn't know that they were out there. I thought that you just go through life. And so that night, I had a great time. But like I said, a lot of people have a great experience, but then they kind of fall asleep again. They go back and they go, well, it can't really be like that in the real world. And I just had a lot more awareness as I went back into life. I'm like, I want more people that are hungry to help, more people that contribution is that meaningful work is one of their top values. So 6 months later.
So after that, you were still at Del Mar, like nailing your outcomes, but like you were forever changed by that thing with Tony. Like, I got to get that again.
Yeah. It's kind of like there was this angel sitting on my shoulder, you know, and then there was this other one going, no, you have to go back to work and you have to do this. And this is just how you have to do it. And then there's this angel.
Did it feel like different after you had that kind of spiritual awakening of sorts? And then you're sort of back to it. And then it was like, there was clarity.
Yeah, so much more clarity, but I was also, you know, a little bit scared, right? Because I was listening to some of the noise of what other people that were saying, no, this is just how you have to do this. And I'm like, but I want this.
Oh, and I would imagine like people were saying things like, well, how are you going to make this much money? Right. Like people are such like on a survival market, like, wait, you're not going to make that much money if you just go help the homeless. That's like, people get really caught up in those externals and forget.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I bought into in the past was it was either contribute or make money, but you can't do both type of thing. Right. But I'm just saying that, and here I was at 24, 25 years old, and I was already that was buying into the stories. Right. And I'm like, if I don't change this now, right, if I don't change this belief now, then how is it really going to affect everything in my life? So I showed up. It turned out my friend was renting a room to me, but he was also renting a room to this other guy, and he thought we wouldn't meet. It was this guy from Thanksgiving who became the father of my 3 kids, who was the 5th employee at Robbins. And they asked me to go work in the production department. And so I organizing big events like the weekends and the one-day business seminars. And I noticed
you became Tony Robbins, like organizer of all of his events.
Yeah. And so
at 25.
At 25, and we were doing I was on the road about 300 days a year. So we had these one-day business seminars. We had these firewalk weekends.
Lauren, how did you, can I ask, I want to get really granular here because I think we might be missing such an important part of the story. Like, how did you come to terms with that you were going to let go of this highly prestigious, highly financially secure and go into like, I mean, it's a very different time, like go into this kind of unknown startup where you weren't going to have that kind of security. Like, how did you take that leap?
How did I take that leap? I just was, it's almost like I saw the vision of what my life was going to look like 10 years down the line if I kept doing that, you
Oof,
know,
chills.
and it scared me. It scared me. It scared me. I saw, you know, I just was like, I don't want that. I mean, I loved it. Once again, it was very cool. I met some amazing people. You know, I mean, one of the first people I met was like Robert Wagner, and I'm
Right.
like, what's his name? Like, I was
No,
meeting
that's what
like
I
cool
mean.
people, like people to
It's
look.
a big shiny job, you know.
It was a
it's a
big
big hard,
shiny
and
job.
especially that young, it's a hard thing to give up all that prestige, you know.
Yes, yeah. But I really saw it 10 years down the line. And I just started looking at it was like same thing that kind of with the CNN thing for me a little bit, because I was like, if I took a job there, I knew I was going to be in studio. I wasn't going to be able to travel the way that I wanted to, or do this or that, or maybe I was just going to stay wherever. And so that to me is like I, I had to take the risk. I knew that something had to change, right?
Well,
And
I don't know. I think there's so many people who live these sort of less happy lives. I'm doing the artist way for the second time right
I
now.
love one of my
Talks
what
about,
just so you know, that was the first book when I did, we were talking about this before, you and I. And when I first started with Robbins, Tony's first wife, Becky Robbins, gave that book to me. That was the first book. If you were to ask me like personal development books,
yeah.
it wasn't that she gave me The Artist Way as one of the very first books that I ever had.
I'm doing it.
So,
I'm in such a different state than the last time I did it.
yeah,
Profoundly, it's
yeah,
profoundly eye-opening. And I think a lot of what she writes about are people feeling miserable inside because they ignored that voice that you didn't ignore.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and you know, like you said, like was I don't my friend Jen, who you know that you've met a little bit, and is going to be with us, who's amazing. Somebody was she was like, Lauren, I don't know if you're fearless. You just feel the fear and you do it anyway,
Yeah.
right? And I think for me that really is. It's not like that. I'm not scared. I am scared to take these leaps, but I'm more scared of like, what if I don't take the leaps? I'm more scared of if I
Well, that's the whole
don't put
podcast. I
myself
think
on the
we can
line.
end here. I mean, I don't think there's anything else to say. That's such a great, that's such a beautiful sentiment, right? It's scary to move forward, but it's scarier to stay still.
Yeah,
That like that
that is
annoys
really
me.
it.
Yeah, that, you know, that when she says, you know, sometimes like the pain of staying in the bud was greater than the pain of breaking open. That's always a powerful quote to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So then
But
what happened? I'm involved. This is
oh,
the movie I'm
okay.
watching.
So then, I started, you know, putting on these events, and there were these 1-day business seminars, which were awesome. It was really kind of like the beginning of branding for people, like what made you unique in the marketplace, and I loved it. Like I was like, wow, this is so freaking cool. And then you would meet people that I learned so much that the people that were really doing the best were people that were doing the work, right? They weren't just there. What is Warren Buffett says, the best investment you'll ever make is investing in yourself, right? That's the best investment that you'll ever make. And so I started and I got hungry, like I got hungrier to learn again and to expand and to grow. And I couldn't believe I was growing so much. And then I would see people coming to events, like, and they were wearing like old name tags, like from past events, and they were trying to sneak into the event. And I'm like, well, obviously they want to be here to learn more, to experience more, to do more. And I was like, well, why don't we create a program where people can come back and be a part of it? So I created the crew program for Tony, where people would come and then they would serve, and then they would, you know, we would do extra skill sets for them. And it was this family within a family. I also organized a day called Project Contribution, where we'd send all the participants out for non-for-profits, and we would say, give us whatever work you need done and we'll just send you people. So I did that for many, many years. And then I was planning the last one because Tony was ending the last life mastery and that we were doing in Hawaii that we do every year. And it was September 2001. And that year I was like, God, I feel like I need to like arrange projects for everybody this year. I don't know why, but I felt like I need to arrange projects for everybody. And most of the time we'd have about 50% of the people that would go out and help on projects and 50% would just take the day off. But I was like, man, this is the last year we're doing this. I really just need to organize more things. And guess what happened 4 days later?
What?
9/11.
Oh,
And we were there at the event, and all people wanted was, what can I do to help? What can I do to serve? And we were on Kona. We were literally locked down. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing that we could do. And I had shared a story when I was pregnant with my second son. I was like a keg with legs. And somebody asked me how many steps was a firewalk lane, and I'm like, oh, you guys, it's only 5 steps, 1, 2, 3. And I broke my foot. I fell and I broke my foot. And I'd gone to the emergency room, and I'm backtracking a little bit, but what happened, I went to the emergency room and I was in the triage, and I could hear like the other lady having a conversation with the nurse and hear something else going on here. And I heard this girl going, my heart, my heart, my heart. I feel like it's going to jump out of my chest. And I could almost feel the nurse taking her hand and putting it on the girl's leg, going, don't worry, baby, you're in the right place. So when 9/11 happened, when everything happened with 9/11, a couple days before, we had done this kind of like welcome thing for Tony with the crew. And I told the story about me breaking my foot and about the lady saying, you're in the right place. And Tony called me, he goes, do you mind if I use that story, just about that people are in the right place? And I'm like, of course. He goes, I don't know why you told that story, Loren, because it was totally out of left field, but obviously you told it so that I could share this now. And I think a lot of people discount that as well, right? Like really, really listening. I don't think we listen and really hear things the way we need to hear. And, I hear you, but you really listening to the message? So anyway, Tony, they did this program and we brought in people via satellite. Can you imagine, just 21 years ago, it was freaking via satellite 22 years ago. And satellite time was and here we are on Zoom, like, right? So, but what we noticed was some of them were better via satellite than they were live. And Tony's like, I've got a resort in Fiji. I've people that can teach this program. And he asked me to move to Fiji and launch the program. So I moved to Fiji. I took my family. We were teaching about 36 week-long programs a year. It was like Groundhog Day, right? It was amazing. A group would come in, we fell in love with them. A group would come in, we fell in love with them. And just over and over for 36
what were you
weeks.
Teaching them, Lauren?
It was a week-long health cleanse. It's called Life Mastery. So it was talk about your emotions, the foundation of health, your emotional health, your physical health, relationships, introduction to finances. It was amazing, right? Like it was just, and you would see people that they just, we always talk about too many people build a house, they build on a house of cards, right? Instead of really creating that strong foundation. And so it was unbelievable. Like I don't even know, but I remember and somebody I hope this message comes through for someone, that I remember when I was sitting there and before the program came and before it started, the first group of participants were arriving, there were like manuals and books and videos and like all of this stuff. And I remember sitting there going, oh my God, maybe I signed on for something too big, right? Kind of like how, it's an easy place to go to, like, oh my God, maybe it's just too big, it's too much, it's too scary, it's all of these things. And Tony came up and to me and I go, Tony, I don't know. You could have picked anybody. Maybe this is too much. Maybe I don't know if I can do this. Like, what am I doing? Because I was in my 30s. And I said, he goes, put everything down, everything. Put the manuals down, put all of the stuff they sent you, just put it down. I said, why? There are people there with more skill than me. There are people that have more experience than me. I go, why did you choose me? And I want everybody to really hear this, because this is what has become my thing. He said, I brought you here, Loren, because I knew you'd take care of these people. He said, and I go, and I thought to myself, I can do that. I know how to take care of people, right? I know that. And he said, the skill will show up. Once you start doing the event, you'll know what your kind of favorite flavors are, right? It's kind of like having a tool belt. And you might use one skill more than another skill, right? Or you might use one type I'm sure there's certain things you do with therapy that you go to certain things, even though you have a knowledge of tons of things, but I'm sure there are certain things that you go back to. But when he said, I brought you here because I knew you'd take care of these people, I could breathe, right? And I go, I got this. I got this. And I thought to myself, it's a win if I remember that all I need to do is take care of people.
Well, it's like
And,
you have the heart and you can build skill. Like you can't build
right.
heart. You
You
can't
can't build heart.
heart.
Yeah. And we always say that, right? It's not about skill, it's about heart.
Yeah.
Or what's the thing that when people know that it's more important than not what you know, but that people know that you care.
Yeah.
The whole thing. I mean, there's no new information, right? It's just, it's translated different ways.
Right.
And I was like, I know what to do. And for me, that's always been kind of my true north for myself, with regards to that. And yeah, so then from there, we were there in Fiji. We lived there for 2.5 years. And I wrote a book. The first book I wrote was a book called The Greatest Love, Being an Extraordinary Mom. And it was really cool. And it got published and by a major publisher. But when we were in Fiji, I said to my kid's dad, I go, I got to go. And he goes, what do you mean you got to go? We're in freaking Fiji. We have no expenses. Like, we're working, we're doing what I love. Our boys are like having a blast. Like, and I mean, it wasn't like there was nowhere to shop, just so you know. There was nowhere really to eat. Like, it was interesting. It was
very remote.
It was living on a rock, in a very, very remote rock.
Beautiful rock.
A beautiful rock, but there was sometimes you had to just get off the rock. And I said to him, I got to go. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I see a lot of people coming here, especially women, when this was great, but then I saw this like pain in their heart as they were leaving. They didn't feel like they had the community. It's like they're scared to go home. We always say it's what you do after an event that's more important than what you do at an event.
Absolutely.
And I said, I remember talking to Heidi, our friend Heidi, right? I said, I'm going to go back.
Heidi's my fairy godmother. She's my fairy godmother. I nailed it.
She just sent me a photo of when we were together actually at the LeBares in Del Mar, and I just met her and Isaac, dear Isaac. So anyway, I said, I need to go back. I see a lot of women going, that was great, but who am I? And I go, I need to go back and do events for women about getting them back to their core. We get so lost in our roles as a mother, as a wife, as a philanthropist, as whatever that is, but we forget who we are at our core. And I said, there are these different stages we go through. There's that discovery stage, there's a stay true stage, and there's a rediscovery stage, and then there's a staying connected stage. And I said, I see so many women in this rediscovery stage, and they're hungry to know what to do to rediscover. So I came back to the United States and started to do retreats for women. Now, this is 2004. Just so you know, 2000. Not everybody's like, what are you doing these personal development things for women? They don't need this. They don't. I got
You're
so much.
such a trailblazer. It's amazing. Yeah, it wasn't like a thing. It wasn't like
it was definitely not a thing.
Yeah.
Everybody told me, do not do it.
Right.
Like, don't do it. That's ridiculous. Why would you do that? Blah, blah, blah. And, once again, it's kind of like, you can see the patterns, right? Like a lot of people, it happened to me. I noticed the pattern was that's what people said to me when I was leaving Del Mar and going to work in personal, in Tony's world, if you would. And so I started to do these events and these retreats, and they were awesome. Like our first one was at the Sonoma Mission Inn. And I always wanted to do one of those grape stomps like Lucille Ball, So we went to a winery and we did like a grape stomp, and it was all about really getting back to your core, like I said, as women. So I started doing them as I was still working for Robbins as an independent contractor, but I still didn't have the confidence. I didn't have a lot of the great people around me. You know what I mean? It's almost like you can be in the environment, but also not be as connected as you need to be. Does that make sense? Like you can.
Was your perception of it? I've just been a therapist for so long, and I feel like
my perception.
It's like, I think everybody feels that way. And then like, I don't know. I can't imagine. I just never even think of you that way. I just think of you as
it's so funny. And it's so funny that you say that, because a lot of people, where were we? We're just somewhere. And someone says, one of my friends from college was here. And he said to my husband, he said, man, she just hasn't changed at all. Like, she's so confident. She's so go this and that. And I'm like, I don't remember myself being that way. Like, I don't remember myself being as confidence everybody thought that I was. Now my daughter, like, she's like, I'm like so proud of my daughter. Like, I feel like she's really gotten it. But anyway,
But there's
I
that
went
old
and
adage that says, you know, it's like we're comparing our insides to other people's outsides. And that's just, you know, like I know like inside I'm I love, you and I are so close. I'm like so nervous for this podcast, right? Like, but no one would know that. But like,
right.
and like, so I look at you and I'm like, Loren doesn't even get nervous. She's the bravest person I know. She's fearless about asking for anything. She'll put together like a 1,000,000-person event, like no big deal. It's just an interesting thing. And you're like, no, I'm scared as heck inside. Like, oh my God, we're just all doing our best, aren't we? It's fascinating.
Right. But I love putting myself under pressure. Like, what do we say? We call it, it's kind of like putting yourself under, what would you say? It's
A little pressure
putting
cooker.
yourself, well, what do we say? It's kind of like knowing that you're going to put yourself under pressure. Like, I like that because it causes me to raise my standards in how I do things, right? I get more laser focused with things. I'm better with my time. I'm very intentional because I do believe that intention does matter a lot. And I think if people were more intentional with everything that they did, right, then like, I'll give you an example, and then I'll go back to the story. Was I saw this girl on Facebook, a girl I know from Australia, and she went through a tough time and she started working out and doing things, but she didn't like post it all the time and this and that. She just did this one picture of her with like some major big time transformation, right? And I'm like, and then she shows herself of where she was at. She was at this F45 gym. I don't know if you've ever done it.
No.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going. I'm like, okay, I'm going. I get it. So I go and I join this F45, right? And it's hard. It is not. I mean, I was like the first class. I was like, I'm like halfway through. I'm like, I know I'm a wimp, but I'll come back the next time. So last night, my husband and I are out at dinner, and there's this text that comes in. Hi, welcome to the gym. My name's Eve, and just want to welcome you, in your experience. And I know you from Wealth Mastery.
Huh.
And I was like, what?
Wow.
And here's the deal, because I was the facilitator for the program. And I go to the guy today. I'm like, did she see me yesterday? She goes, no, she just saw your name. And the reason why I'm like, oh my God, now I have to freaking get there, because like, I got to, for me, once again, intention matters, all of those different things of how I show up. And, but the reason why I bring it up is people are always watching. I think that lots of times that, and I don't mean that like I do things to please people. I do it because I want people to know I really freaking walk my talk, that there is no BS about me, right? But I do that for me because I know that I've given my best. I mean, I'm not doing it for anybody else, but it's like, that's what I mean. It's like, I like that pressure a little bit because it gets me to live at the highest level of my existence in a way that
listening to your conscience. I mean, I don't even know if I'd call it pressure. I feel like the thing I'm really picking up here is how deeply in tune you are with your own internal wisdom. I mean, I have a sort of an ancillary question. I'm always fascinated in how people do it. I'm so fascinated by, like, do you have practices? Like, do you have spiritual practices that you do daily? Thank God. Because if you were like, no, I don't even know if we could, like, I might have to be out of this friendship. Like, no, I'm just naturally,
no,
I'm like this after like at least 30 minutes a day of really pointed journaling and this, and then I become this.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad to know, what do you do?
So I believe, I think rituals are the most important thing that you can do to really get yourself, ready. I believe what you do at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day are the two most important things, and so I wake up every day, and no matter how much sleep I've had, which, as you know, I just got back from Israel, but no matter what I say to my, first of all, I wake up, I thank God. I'm like, thank you, God, another great day. I'm alive. Yep. Truly, I really open my eyes and go, thank you. And then I say to myself, today's going to be the best day of my life again. And I assume that the day is going to be amazing. Wow. And I wait. And then I, like, my husband, he thinks I drive crazy because I like pull open the I pull open, the sliding glass thing, and I look out and I look at the red rocks and I appreciate something in nature. I'm like, thank you, how beautiful, right? And I look at the red rocks, I look at whatever that's out there, and I'm just like, oh God, thank you. And because of you, I can breathe the oxygen that's out there that I'm going to open. So I'm always appreciating.
Beautiful gratitude practice.
Thank you. And it doesn't take any time, right?
No,
Like
I know.
It's like I get like I'm in the, then I look and
you get into a gratitude flow. So you're in a higher self.
I have, and then right beside my bed, I have I have a note from my husband. I have a note from each of my kids. And then I just keep it and I look at it just real quickly. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. And then I go over my friend on my 50th birthday. She wrote 50 things that she loves about me. Now I'm 57 now, and I read it every day. Her crazy boots, her Lobella girls, her badass and beautiful. And I just look at that and I'm like, yes, yes. Wow. And then I do my I am statements. I'm loving, I'm honest, I'm passionate, I'm compassionate, I'm kick-ass, I'm full of faith, I'm God's girl, I'm Tomb Raider tight, I'm a sexy salsa dancer, I'm an awesome coach, I'm an awesome mama, I'm hilarious.
You say these out loud? I'm very specific. You say these out loud? And you say the same ones every day.
Yeah.
Can you say those slower in case people want to make notes? I'm serious. Okay,
I'm loving, I'm on it. I mean, I just think when it naturally come out, I'm loving, I'm honest, I'm compassionate, I'm kick-ass, I'm full of faith, I'm God's girl, I'm a Tomb Raider tight, I'm an awesome coach, I'm an awesome mom.
This is true. I agree with all this.
And I'm hilarious.
You are hilarious.
Hilarious. And then I always say that nobody can take it away from you unless you give it to them. And I think we just give our power away too much. We let all of the noise get to us and that's why if I don't do that, I'm telling you, the day goes a little bit off track because I've got to feel, I always say, if I'm going to be putting premium fuel in here, I better be putting premium fuel in there.
She's saying if I'm putting premium fuel in my mouth, I'm putting premium fuel in my brain first. And that, it's so good. But like, I love what you're saying. I mean, I have my own spiritual practice, but I'm so in love with this one because what you're really doing is you're connecting with your highest self in the most profoundly beautiful way. So of course you're going to go kick ass. And I might be changing my spiritual practice. Right
well, and then as you can see, because behind me, you can tell everybody, I'm obsessed with my manifestation boards. I have 40 years of manifestation boards here. When you come to my house, you can actually see when you come here to Vegas and you're going to see them all, but that's only 15 years behind me. But the reason why it's important to me is it's not so much about things. It's about an identity of how I show up in the world. Yeah. And I go, if I'm really going to make all these kick-ass, am I okay to say kick-ass? If I'm really going to make all these, kick-ass things happen in the world, if I'm really going to make the changes that I say that I'm going to do, then how do I show up in my health? How do I show up in my relationships? How do I show up in what I'm learning and how I'm growing and, and what I'm learning with my family? Because I want my kids, I'm committed to being the hero that my kids are looking for in the world. I want them to look and go, that's my mom. That they go, she walks her talk. She's doing what she says she does. And what's happened, one of my favorite books, I don't know if you've read it, it's the Delaney sisters' book of everyday wisdom. No, and it's these two African-American women, they're sisters. I think they lived to be like 104 and 102. And they talk so much about, I keep any handwritten note that anybody's ever written me. They said, and they did too, and I learned this from the book, right? They said, the only reason people have a phone is because they want to know if you're alive or not, right? If they really want to know, then they can come visit. And then they talked about keeping handwritten notes. So I have like every note, whether it's even on a little piece of paper, I keep it. But they also talked about that their mom, when their mom was growing, when they were growing up, that their mom at her desk, there was the Bible and there was a picture of her family and Abraham Lincoln and the importance of having a sacred space. And everybody knows that when she was in that place, that was mama's time. Wow. And right. And so what I've noticed, I was like, I'm going to do that. And I did that whenever I read that book 27 years ago. And guess what's happened? My kids have modeled that. They have their sacred spaces. Wow. They know what their space is, wherever that they go. And I think that those you were just talking, the rituals, those rituals matter. right? Those
I mean,
rituals
Lauren,
keep us
I
grounded.
actually think that part of the misery that our society feels right now is due to lack of ritual.
Absolutely.
I was at my goddaughter's bat mitzvah 2 weeks ago, and my best friend was saying, "I can't believe everybody is coming to the service. I just so many people." And I said, "People are desperate for
Yes,
ritual. They are they don't even know it. Their souls know it. Like they don't
I
even
know.
know it." But to
Yep.
be, the party's fun, but to be together communing in this rite of passage, I think everybody's soul is craving.
I tell
Talk
you
about
what,
what
from
you're craving,
I don't know. I don't know if you've ever been if you've been to Israel or not, but
I
one of the
haven't.
one things that I do love about Israel that I mean the Sabbath is honored,
Oh yeah.
right? Like Saturday, nothing's open.
Oh yeah. When I was
Like
I was in Bali in 2019, and I was in really remote places, and I was in a lot of Muslim places, and like life stops and the prayer
yeah,
happens, and I felt so moved during
yeah.
that. Like the first time I was like, "Oh, I'm eating lunch," but then listen to it enough and you're like, this is sacred.
Well,
Everybody's stopping what they're doing to remember
well,
who they are.
yeah. Well, even like I remember I had an Uber driver in New York when we went to New York this past June. And we were talking about that he got up at 5. He was a Muslim, he was Muslim, and he was talking about, yeah, we get up at 5 every morning to do our first prayer I'm like, well, what does that first prayer represent? He goes, welcoming the day, grateful for the first day. I'm like, oh, I love it. And he goes, and then we do the one here, and then we do the one here, and what it represents.
Right.
And then he was explaining like what his wife would do, what rituals that are important for him. I'm like, I love that. Right. So I think we also need to take what works for us,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Like, and create your own. I think the one thing to be careful of is, making of just taking something because you heard it sound something great. Make sure that it really, really resonates with you,
And I think make
right?
sure you can do it consistently, because I think
Exactly.
that's like where your soul gets a little wound up when you're like, oh, I'm going to do this whole long thing. And then you don't do anything. I think it
Yep.
really
Well,
needs.
it's like you were just talking about journaling. Like, I mean, I love to journal. I do it every so often. But what's really worked for me is I've had this 10-year journal.
Mhm.
And so you write just 3 sentences and you follow it for 10 years.
Wow.
And so I can see like what's happened over the past 10 years, right? And
So
it's just
cool.
three lines. So I'm like, 3 lines I can do. If you've
Right.
ever gotten an email from me, I'm like
It's real short.
two,
It's
a
concise.
two, it's very short,
It's mostly like in the subject.
pretty
I
much,
appreciate
right?
that. You're like, I can't wait to see you at Own Your Worth. I was like, what a great email. I opened it. There was nothing to open. I was like, this is amazing. Wait, can we talk about, we're already like at 45 minutes, of course. Wait, let's talk about how awesome Own Your Worth is. I have to say, I've said this like in my intros a lot, but like, first of all, talk about imposter syndrome. I'm like sitting on our first call and I'm like, why am I here? It was like the most like high level, brilliant, contributing women I'd ever sat with. I was like, oh boy, time to level up, Carmel. So can you talk us through like how you invented this amazing event? And every time I'm on a call, I'm like, well, this is just getting better. I can't believe it.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I've been in the event world, and I think one of the most important things is to really be aware of, you know, of what's working and what doesn't work. I always say too many people are modeling people that are doing things that don't work versus
Yeah,
people
that's
modeling people that
absolutely
do
true.
work. And so when I love doing retreats and it's fun, but it was also very comfortable for me to do retreats. So I was like, 40, 50 people, this is comfortable. I don't have to make too much of a big investment. I don't have to do too much. This is great. And then, um, I started, when COVID happened, that mandatory pause, I was like, okay, I could do retreats. I could do it kind of, sort of, I could do them online, I could do Zoom, I could do all these things, blah, blah, blah. And I did, but I saw Tony step up. And he's like, I got thousands of people to reach. I need to, I'm not going to stop doing. I'm not going to just do it one Zoom call, which actually though he has been successful in everything with regards to that. But he built a studio, and it was pretty cool though about the studio, because I went to go do a virtual life mastery. They asked me to do a virtual life mastery, and I was nervous because I'd seen all these other people leading some of the programs he had been doing, and I hadn't been in the studio. And I go in and I do the first segment, and then the guys that were in the studio go, "Come here, we have to talk to you." I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong?" And they go, "When was the last time you were like in front of like a camera like that, like a TV camera like that?" And I'm like, 1987, you know? And they go, "Oh my God, Loren, like you eat that up." And what I love about it is you just need to deliver the message. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas, and I mean this with no disrespect to anybody, I think that's what's happened, unfortunately, for a lot of people is they get so, like at live events sometimes, it's like an addiction. They get so fed by the crowd instead of like really getting people the message. Does that make sense? So I love direct
that's
to
addiction
camera,
101. That makes all the sense in the world.
give them, just give it to them. Just give it to them. You're not going to get any feedback. You're not going to get anything. And I was like, oh, I love this. Right. And a lot of people were like freaked out by it. I'm like, I love this. This is cool. So anyway, Tony built his studio. Well, my friends here in Vegas, they had an event which was set for 7,000 people at Mandalay Bay, MGM, and they needed to figure out a way. And Tony wasn't, obviously he didn't build a studio to rent it out to other people. And they had 7,000 people that already paid for an event. And they're like, well, I guess we should build our own studio. So they built this insane, gorgeous studio. It is state of the art. There's nothing like it in the world. I mean, there's crystal chandeliers in the studio. Is magnificent.
It's very big.
It is so beautiful, and it's top of the line. So I went, well, I'm going to rent this studio out. And I rented, and it's like putting on just, the Academy Awards, truly and so I put it on as a test for a company I work with. And I put my own money down, money I didn't have, and I said, oh my God, if my husband knew how much I put down, he'd probably divorce me. This thing better work out. We had 5,000 people virtually. We had 200 people in the studio. It was the heart of Omicron. We had translated in 5 languages. I'm like, oh my God, well, if I could do it for that, why wouldn't I put together an event that I bring all my favorite people together and bring all these wonderful women to the world? And as my passion's always been about helping young women and all women, and I believe that's what we've lost. That, I don't know if you can see over there, I have my favorite poster. My mom's had it. My mom's the best. It's Women Who Run with the Wolves. And I think we've lost that real woman's circle, which started with, all ages and honoring all ages. So I believe that it's never too early to own your worth, and it's never too late to own your worth. We're going to be having our friend Lucy. I'm meeting her tomorrow. She's a Holocaust survivor. She was 14 years old in Auschwitz. I'm like, Lucy, you want to go to lunch? She goes, yes, let's go to lunch. Let's talk about this event. And she's got at 94 years old. And so there's so many. And I think that we don't have 5 years to decide if we're going to own our worth and we're going to step up. I mean, if the world's going to get better, the world needs a giant hug right now. And it's going to be us women really supporting each other. I like to see myself as a hub. I've got so many wonderful women like that you've met and you are, and that I just want to bring them together, and we will transform the world together. We will. This event to me is to start a movement for women really pulling together. It's not a pitch fest. It's nothing. It's just like women delivering, to own your worth with your mindset, your money, and your mission. So that's
and I think it's impossible to make change when you're rooted in self-hate and not enoughness and scarcity and all of that stuff. And so I think, that's the whole point of Own Your Worth, is to sit for a week, not just a weekend, but sit at a weekend with people in community to really figure out what you're missing, get those missing parts in. And then I do love, there's so much, like in my therapy world, like aftercare. And of course, there's always aftercare.
Well, I think the aftercare is the most important thing. It's like, I see too many people where self-help becomes shelf-help, we always say.
Oh, right? Come on. Where did that come from?
Oh, that's a good one, right? So that people like go to an event and then they put everything on the shelf and then they never
becomes shelf-help. What? That's 42 minutes, 50 minutes into the pod. That's the whole, there's so many nuggets. That's true. That's right? So true. It's not integrated.
And they don't integrate it. And so then that just like and that's like the frustration for me always, right? It's like, well, what are you going to do with it? Right. Because you've got to like get off your butt and
Everybody
actually
thinks
put
it's like
things
a
in.
destination. Owning your worth isn't a destination. It's an action. It's all like, it's like forgiveness. Owning your worth is like forgiveness. It's like acceptance. It's like compassion. It's like all of these things they constantly need to be. It's like what you're saying about your morning ritual. The days you don't do your morning ritual, you're like, I don't know how I feel about me, right? It's like if you stop taking your blood pressure medicine and then you had high blood pressure, you wouldn't be like,
Right.
my blood pressure's high.
But like I said, most people aren't aware. Like the one thing that I learned from doing these, the cleanses for so long, sometimes you feel worse before you feel better.
Oh, I
Right. So,
welcome
and
to therapy.
you have to be willing to go through it. Right. What do we say? The best way out of it is through it. And a lot of people, you got to do the work. It's not always fun, right? Like one of my favorite books is a book called The Prayer of Jabez. And no matter what your
What is it?
religious
The
beliefs
prayer of
are,
what?
The Prayer of Jabez, Jabez.
Okay.
And it's 99 cents on Amazon.
Well, it's
And the first line of the Prayer of Jabez is, God bless me indeed. That means we're here, right? We're here to manifest in our greatness and kindness and everything in the world. And the second line, though, is, and expand my territory. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? It means make me more so that, right? Make me more so that I can become more, so that I can serve more, so that, all of those different things. And I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, the biggest lessons have always been through the pain, right?
Pain is the only space I've ever grown. The darkness. I mean, at this point, I get dark and I'm like, all right, another opportunity. Let's get on our wetsuit. Let's do this, universe, and it's really, I always think the hardest things get the highest rewards, though. And I know that from quitting.
I do too. Yep.
In the world. I know that from horrible breakups. I know the darker I get, the lighter it gets. And I
love that. I love that. But yeah, like it's like, Jen Steinman, like a friend that you're going to meet on one of her, we were scheduled to go, it would have been 16 years ago, we were scheduled to go to Malawi with our friend, Philip, because I was going to go adopt a baby girl because I was 41 and I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to get pregnant again. So maybe I'll just go over there because, Philip knows everybody over here and I'm going to go adopt a baby from Malawi. And then guess what? God did it. And so Jen and I were planning our trip and I got pregnant, right? So God had had her intervention there. And Jen's like, well, what do I do? I'm like, well, just still go to Africa. You still go, you still do. She goes, no, we're supposed to go together. And she's like, no, I want to do it with you. I'm like, Jen, go. And so she came up with this idea to take 9 women who had lost their children in very different situations. And she stayed in my house at the time. She got hundreds of letters from women and about what had happened. So she took these 9 women to Africa to show how contribution healed, right? And she ended up, I mean, her film's amazing. It's called Motherland. But the importance, like she said, like, man, Loren, I grew so much, but these women, they taught me so much through the pain of what that they went through, with regards to it, and God forbid, but it's one of those things that I even look, for my kids. I know that I would see my kids going through stuff and I'm like, I know the other side. I had to see that vision, right? Like I have to see that 10-year, what it's going to look like 10 years from now. So for me, that's what I know. This is just, we're planting, what I believe we're doing with Own Your Worth is planting the seed for people, right? But we've got to keep watering it and we've got to make sure to take care of everybody, with regards to it. And what I also am excited about, which is very, I think the most powerful part, is not so much even what the speakers are going to share, even though everybody's going to share amazing things. I noticed that the biggest breakthroughs happen when people go into their breakout rooms and when we do shares.
Oh, yeah.
So giving them that safe space to be able to do that is really the power. So we've arranged enough time in the event where we spend the time for that integration, for that to happen, versus just people talking at you, right?
Totally. So there's lots of integration. It really is going to be such an amazing event. All the codes for the 10% off and everything is in the show notes. I have not been shutting up about it. So everybody knows about it. And you can meet Loren and all the other amazing women. And where can we know you better though? Like Facebook, Instagram, your website. Can you give us all that download too?
Sure. I'm really easy. I'm just Loren Lahav, Loren Lahav on Facebook. Instagram, I am Loren Lahav. I need to get better at Instagram. So like need some help here. And then just my website is just Loren Lahav. I'm just here. I just am so grateful. Big hug to Heidi from I think both of us. You are my new favorite. And just so you know, my favorite kind of chocolate is caramel chocolate. So I knew and you're
well, I'm not. I gotta tell you,
knew I fell in love with you when it was caramel.
I love you
Last
too.
night,
My
my
heart is
daughter
so
got her
full.
first. My daughter got her first. My daughter, she's probably gonna kill me, but I'm sure nobody's listening to this. She's 15. She has her first yesterday on Valentine's Day. She got to be her somebody asked her to be, you know, her Valentine, and we got caramel chocolate. So I thought
there
of you
you
last
go.
night.
When I was in
Thought
your
of you.
Well, I
You
love
were in my.
you.
I
I'll
love
see
you
you
too.
soon. I get to see you all the time. And you can come see both of us all the time at Own Your Worth.
Yes,
For
come
coming
see
on
us
my
at Own Your
show.
Worth. We have so many. Oh my gosh! If you are considering to join us live, which you should totally come live, the studio is only holds 200 people, but you'll get to meet all of the speakers, and we have so much swag. It's insane. Like for the VIPs, it's like $7,000 worth of swag and stuff, and it's you know that is definitely not the cost of the ticket. And then for those of you that want to come general admission, same thing, so much swag for you. And we just want to take care of you. That's really it. Let us take care of you. Let us
like
serve
Tony
you.
Robbins would say, you know how to take care of us.
I know how to take care of you.
All right. I love you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You're the greatest.
You too, my love. Bye.